It's our pleasure now to present a taped interview made last summer with Mr. Kodaly. During my own absence from the city, our producer, Don Gillis, and the maestro's son, Walter Toscanini, visited with Mr. Kodaly in his suite at the Plaza Hotel here in New York City. As our interview begins, Don has just asked our guest the purpose of his visit to the United States. And Mr. Kodaly answers,
"This was the consequence of an invitation from the Dartmouth College, which was repeated 3 times, because the first time I could not come because we had to go to Israel. In the second year, we had 2 conferences in Budapest, which I could not leave. But since he repeated the third time, I thought I must come to look what is in Dartmouth."
The occasion of your visit back to New York brought an opportunity for a renewal of old friendship with Walter Toscanini, who's seated here beside me. There was a visit, I believe, in Riverdale. Walter?
Yes, I had the pleasure to get a phone call from Maestro Kodaly, and he came to Riverdale, and I had the pleasure to play for him a recording of one of those rehearsals of Father for when he performed in 1947 the aria Janus with the NBC Orchestra.
What were your impressions of the visit to Riverdale where Maestro had lived? You had been there before, hadn't you, Maestro Kodaly?
Never before. Last time, my first visit in America, we had only a few days in New York, and we could just meet the maestro in a rehearsal in Carnegie Hall. Then I had to travel in other towns.
Can we go back to the beginning and talk about that first time in Milan when you met? The occasion, I think you told me, was the performance of your Salmus Hungaricus.
We read in the newspapers that this performance will take place, and I was living there in Budapest, and my friends all told me I must go to listen. I hesitated a long time because I would not intrude without any intervention, but finally I decided to go. We came with my first wife the evening to the Scala, and the porter would not let us in. It's impossible to. He wouldn't believe I am the author. When they called then Miss Colombo. Colombo came out and talked with me, and she told me finally she will announce the master whether he will receive me or not. He was not content with the tenor and with the chorus and with the performance, and she told me I must not wait a very good performance because he was very angry with the tenor. But finally it was a very impressive performance, and our public was very enthusiastic about it.
Walter, were you at that particular concert or rehearsals? Do you remember the event?
Yes, I remember very vividly the event. It was a big event, and I tell you, it is a very impressive work. And Father always liked it very much. He performed it again here in New York, and in the last year of his career, he wanted to perform. He had already written among the things that he wanted to perform the Salmus Hungaricus. But, you know, it is difficult to find a tenor. It's always difficult to find the right performer. Father, instead of making a mediocre performance, he preferred not to do it. One or the other, you know, or perfection or nothing.
That was his philosophy always, it seems. Your first acquaintanceship with him then was in 1926 in Milan with the Salmus Hungaricus, but that was only the beginning of your association professionally with him, because I believe you told me that he asked you to write a piece for him.
Yes. On one side it was a big encouragement, and the other side it is very hampering. It's not to write for such a big conductor. I sent him an older work which I have rewritten a little. It was the summer evening that he played with the New York Philharmonia in Budapest. It was also a very big event.
And this work, I believe you dedicated to Maestro.
Yes, it's the first one, because he encouraged me often to write.
He encouraged you also, I think, as a matter of fact, to take one of your sets of dances, which you had originally written for piano.
Yes, the Morrow State dances. He played also in in New York the first time.
Walter, I think you told me that you gave Maestro Kodaly a set of the performance tapes of that, which has not yet been issued as a recording, has it?
Yes, I gave it because I wanted him to have a memento of father, of his work.
Maestro Kodaly, coming back just to your visit recently to Riverdale, what were your impressions as you heard Maestro working with your score with the NBC Symphony?
It was like a dream. Also, I had became 20 years younger.
And the excitement of the rehearsal just makes it all alive. And
yes.
I know that you conduct, I recall that you had done many performances of the Salmus Hungaricus before you had heard Maestro Toscanini do the work in Milan. Did he do it exactly as you had felt it, or was his interpretation as of the composer?
It was better as of the composer.
Better than the composer? Why do you say that?
No, well, I am only an amateur conductor, and I could never be so convinced for my work to have the full strength to put it as to the utmost. I had, for instance, never the patience to rehearse this way the maestro did. So also my performances could never be so good and so living as anyone else's, but especially with such a conductor, he could make living any work he take in hand.
So many of our guests on this series have mentioned the fact Maestro went beyond the pages of the score to find the composer, that he did only that which the composer had put on paper. Can you remember, did he do this with you, or were there additions which he made, changes? His tempi, were they the same as the ones which you conceived when you wrote your music?
Yes, it was never necessary to ask any changes from his tempi and his declamation, especially his phrasing, which was marvelous. I use all this to say the best singing I ever heard was the singing of some phrase in the rehearsals of Toscanini, which is rauque voice. Best singing I ever heard in my life.
We're very much well aware of that, aren't we, Walter, as we listen to rehearsals and recordings?
Yes, every time we tell the orchestra, sing, canta, canta.
It was his refrain.
We have not yet talked about the Harianas, which he did with the NBC Symphony. This was an opera, which I think you did in 1926, was it, or 20?
Yes, 26.
When did you make the orchestral suite?
Soon after, because it was very, very few hope that the whole piece will be given abroad, because it is so Hungarian that it's very difficult to translate it and to make people to understand it. But later it was several times given in Germany, and also here the Juilliard School did it a few years ago.
I saw that performance.
You have seen?
Yes, I saw that twice, that performance, and I tell you, they did a wonderful job, as costume, as acting, and as also as music.
Well, I hope then you agree what I will say, that it's difficult to make understand the people the character of Hari without seeing the whole piece. But generally it is apostrophed as another Münchhausen or a Miles Gloriosus, a lying soldier. But it is far of it. It is quite different things. Hari is a personification of the Hungarian folk tale fantasy. And everything what he is talking, if it was not true, but it is always possible. The folktale character is given with the first piece and is maintained during all the piece. The historic truth and the folk fantasy is mingled to something which is very pleasant.
In the brief time we have remaining, could I ask you, Maestro Kodaly, what you might think of Maestro Toscanini's effect personally upon your own career as a composer?
I think perhaps without him I had no more written many orchestra works because I was always many more involved in choral writing and choral teachings, so that I have him to thank that I wrote some orchestra works still.
Maestro Kodaly, what great, tremendous effect did Maestro Toscanini have upon the world in which he lived in music? And what were, do you think, some of the elements of his tremendous success as a conductor?
He was free from every vanity, which so often performing artists cannot very hit. And he would nothing else as to make speak the author. And everything what he searched was to avoid anything what did not fit that. So that we felt if he played Beethoven, we heard Beethoven playing himself, or even Wagner. This refutes also the general meaning that every style of music can be best interpreted by a native of the same country. Now he proved that every country was accessible for him. And an Italian did the better Wagner as Germans did, and the better Beethoven that Austrians did, and so on. And I can add better Hungarian as Hungarians did.
Walter, do you remember your father's impressions of Maestro Kodaly as he talked of him?
He had a big admiration for the man and for the musician, and he liked his music very much, and he played as much as it was possible.
Maestro Kodaly, I wish you could be here on the broadcast date of this particular interview along with your music, where we have now together again Toscanini in the beautiful recording, Toscanini in the son of the maestro, and yourself as the maestro, the composer. Our many, many thanks to you for being with us on Toscanini, the man behind the legend.
For me to remember all these past days, it's a pity that man must die, at least bodily, but the spirit is living long time.